isn't just a love story. This is a story about a debt of kindness, about the darkness inside human hearts, and about a Christmas miracle that only appears when people still believe in something good. There are small acts born in nameless moments, yet they follow a person for a lifetime. There are people once abandoned in the freezing cold, and yet they become the light that warms someone else's entire life. And there are secrets, betrayals, and schemes that wait for the perfect Christmas night to explode. You are listening to a story on the ambiguous heart, wishing you a peaceful Christmas, a warm one, and enough love to believe that miracles still exist. And now our story begins. Frozen on Christmas night, he was ready to die. Live, someone still needs you. Tonight is Christmas Eve, and yet no one knows why. The snow won't stop falling. White sheets cover the empty street, as if the storm is trying to bury the last trembling hope of survival in a cold corner of the city. There is a young man named Jack. He no longer remembers exactly how long he has been sitting outside. He only knows that when the snow began to coat his torn shoes, his body had almost gone numb. His face was purple from the cold, his lashes heavy with frost, until even opening his eyes became difficult. His fingers were stiff, trembling so badly he couldn't curl them into a fist. His breathing grew shallow, breaking into thin white smoke in the bright, merciless glow of Christmas. The city was lit up. Christmas trees glittered behind windows. Carols drifted from far away, soft and cheerful, making Jack's misery feel almost humiliating, as if the whole world was celebrating something he was never allowed to touch. Jack curled beneath the awning of a closed shop. Had he really thought he would die here? Not from hunger, but from cold. Cold from the weather, and cold from the feeling that no one even remembered who he was. People hurried past to make it home for Christmas with their families. And Jack, no one even noticed the man fading into the wall in the bitter winter. In that moment, Jack only wished that God would save him. Just a bowl of hot soup, just a warm blanket, anything to survive winters like this. And then, someone passed by. A pair of shoes paused for half a second. Jack lifted his head, forcing his mouth open to beg for help, but his throat was frozen. Only a hoarse, meaningless sound escaped. The person glanced at him the way you look at a bag of trash in your way, and walked on. The footsteps faded. Jack closed his eyes. Maybe this was it. Maybe God had truly abandoned him. Until another pair of shoes stopped, not rushed, not hesitant. Jack opened his eyes. In front of him stood a thin woman in a worn coat, carrying a bag of cheap groceries. Snow clung to her hair, not yet melted. Her eyes held no fear, only surprise, then pain. Her name was Mary. Mary asked, her voice shaking from the cold. "Are you okay?" Jack wanted to answer, but his lips wouldn't move. Mary set her bag down, took off the knitted scarf around her neck, an old gray scarf, loosely woven, then gently wrapped it around Jack's throat. The sudden warmth made him shiver, as if someone had suddenly remembered he was still alive. Mary helped him into a nearby diner, bought him a bowl of hot soup, and carefully lifted the spoon to his mouth. "Drink a little," she whispered, slowly. When the soup touched his lips, Jack almost cried. Not because it tasted good, but because for the first time in so long, someone was saving him. Mary felt like an angel sent by God. Jack sat in the small diner where a Christmas tree sparkled with cheap decorations. The fireplace burned, spilling warmth into his skin and into his soul. That moment carved itself deep into his memory, so that years later he would still remember. On the darkest Christmas night, an angel came and pulled him out of the freezing winter. When Jack seemed a little better, Mary asked, "Where do you live? It's Christmas. Why aren't you going home?" Jack stopped eating, hesitated, then stayed silent. Mary understood he didn't want to touch the sorrow. She only said softly, "It's late. I should go. My son is waiting for me to come home and spend Christmas with him." Before she left, Mary pressed some money into Jack's hand. "Enough to rent a room for the night," she said. "Don't sleep outside anymore. Christmas shouldn't end like this." Jack watched her disappear into the snow. He tried to call after her. "What's your name?" Mary turned back and replied, "Mary." That name burned into his memory. But Jack didn't know Mary was poor too. Poor in the way every dollar has a price, and yet she still stopped to save him. The way God doesn't abandon anyone. That night, in a cheap rented room, Jack survived. And he swore, if he lived through this winter, he would find that woman again. 15 years passed. Jack was no longer homeless. He became the kind of man who made an entire room fall silent the moment he entered. Tailored suit, controlled steps, hat, and the calm eyes of a CEO whose decisions shaped thousands of lives. But every Christmas, he still felt empty. Not because he was lonely, but because the image of the girl like an angel who had saved him that winter night. The debt he owed, he still hadn't repaid it. Jack returned to the old neighborhood and searched for the diner from that year. The street looked the same, but the shop had changed into something else. Still, every year he stepped inside, ordered something hot, and sat there, holding the memory he could never forget. But it was still only a memory. Because when Jack finally rose and came back for her, Mary was gone. Every Christmas he returned, staring down the old road like he was waiting for the girl from long ago. And he never found her. Every year, Jack dressed as Santa and walked the old streets himself, through shelters, through rough neighborhoods, past awnings like the one where he had nearly died. He searched for a face, a scarf, kind eyes. Every year, he missed her. Every year, there was only the distant sound of church bells and snow falling onto Santa's red shoulders, while inside the costume stood a man still trapped in the moment someone saved him. Somewhere else in the city, Mary woke at 4 a.m. She quietly climbed out of the creaking bed so she wouldn't wake Kevin. The child was bundled in a thin blanket, breathing evenly. Mary looked at him longer than usual. She always did when Christmas was close, because Christmas makes children hopeful and makes adults afraid. The rented room was so small that a hard turn could bump the wall. Mary brewed weak coffee, ate stale bread in a hurry, pulled on her coat, and left for work. Her marriage had been dead for a long time. Jones used to be normal, but gambling, alcohol, and debt turned him into someone else. He hit Mary whenever he lost, blamed her for every failure, sold everything they owned, and dragged her to the city with a promise. "Just a few months, baby, I swear. We'll have a better place. Kevin will go to a better school." Mary believed him, because she always believed people could change. But the city gave her only a slum. She worked 3 jobs a day. And each time Jones disappeared and returned, he begged for money, screamed, smashed things, and yelled that she was the reason his life was cursed. Kevin was the only reason Mary never collapsed. This Christmas, Kevin asked with the same shining eyes every child has, "Mom, will we have a Christmas tree this year?" Mary got a job at Branch 12 of a major corporation. A stable job. Insurance. A paycheck on time. It didn't make her rich, but it let her breathe. She worked harder than anyone. Never late, never complained, never made mistakes. Mary smiled and brushed Kevin's hair back. "Be good, okay? Tonight, I'll buy a tree and a gift for you. And who knows, maybe Santa will bring you something tonight, too." She said it just to comfort him, because she knew Kevin had spent so many Christmases waiting for Santa and getting nothing. Around 8 that night, a knock came at the door. Kevin thought his mother was home. He ran out excitedly to see what she brought. But when he opened the door and saw Santa, he screamed with joy, "Santa! Santa!" The person in the Santa suit was Jack. And when Jack saw Kevin, he froze. Those eyes looked strangely like the angel from 15 years ago. His face held familiar lines too, like a memory suddenly breathing again. Jack asked quickly, just to confirm the thing he had waited for all these years, "Is your mom home?" Right then, a girl's voice came from inside. "Who is it, Kevin?" It was Mary's younger sister, visiting that day and watching Kevin. The moment she appeared, Jack's heart sank in disappointment. He thought he had finally found the woman from long ago, but it wasn't her. Jack didn't know it was only Mary's sister. He walked away, heavy-hearted, and continued delivering gifts. And at that very moment, Mary was riding home on a bus. The two of them passed each other, missing the same chance. Mary got off, stepped inside, and saw Kevin cheering that Santa had come and given him gifts. She startled because she had only said it as a joke to make him feel better, and yet it became real. That night, Jack finished his deliveries and returned to his large home with a glowing Christmas tree. But his chest felt heavy, because after all these years, he still hadn't found her. And Mary, after celebrating with Kevin and putting him to bed, received an email confirmation. She had officially been hired at Branch 12, the stable job she had fought for. She worked harder than anyone, never late, never complained, never made mistakes. She fought because this job could help Kevin live better. After a year at Branch 12, Jack's company, Mary was voted Employee of the Year. But that success made her an enemy in her own workplace. Because her manager, Sierra, had always wanted that title to get close to Jack, to be noticed by him. And then Mary, the new girl, stole it. Right as Jack was busy preparing gifts for Christmas week, his assistant brought him the list of award winners, and Jack's heart nearly stopped when he saw one name. Jack stared at the paper. Mary Collins. A common name. But those two words dried his throat like an old memory knocking on the door. The assistant said, Employee of the Year, Branch 12. Strong sales, no disciplinary issues. Customers rate her extremely high. Jack nodded, but his mind drifted back to the old working-class streets, where he once wandered, where the snowy Christmas night had never left him. Arrange my trip, Jack said. I'll attend the award ceremony in person. The assistant was stunned. Jack rarely appeared at small internal ceremonies like that. Mary learned she'd been nominated at the end of her shift. She stood still in the warehouse, inventory sheet still in hand, heart pounding. She never thought she'd be honored here. But her happiness wasn't complete. Sierra's gaze pinned her from across the room. Sierra was her direct manager, sharp, ambitious, used to every spotlight pointing at her. Before Mary arrived, Sierra's name was the one everyone praised in meetings. Now people were calling Mary the star of Branch 12. Sierra smiled as she congratulated Mary, but her handshake was cold enough to make Mary shiver. You did well, Sierra said. I hope you can keep it up. Mary nodded, never seeing that behind Sierra's smile was a calculation. The shopping center had been decorated for Christmas for weeks. A massive tree stood in the main atrium. Warm golden lights wrapped around stone pillars. Carols hummed like a layer of snow settling over the city. On the night of the ceremony, Branch 12 was packed. Everyone buzzed, waiting for the CEO to hand out the award. Mary stood in the crowd, her hands trembling. She never imagined she would ever stand in this position. The automatic glass doors opened. Jack walked in. The whole room erupted in applause. But Jack froze, because under the lights, among employees adjusting their name badges, he saw her, Mary. Hair tied back, face thin but unbreakable, and around her neck, an old gray knitted scarf. Jack didn't remember the exact color from 15 years ago, but he remembered the feeling of sudden warmth placed around his throat when he thought the world had forgotten him. His heart pounded. Jack stepped toward her. Right then, Mary turned away to answer Kevin's call. Mom's coming home a little late tonight. Eat dinner with the neighbor, okay? Her voice was warm, low, steady, the same voice that had saved him in the snow. Jack stood like a man nailed to the floor. He wanted to call her name, but his throat went dry like it had that night. And then Sierra appeared, sliding between them with a smile sweet as sugar. Mr. Jack, what an honor that you came in person. Jack gave a small nod, but his eyes kept searching for Mary behind Sierra. And Sierra saw it. She saw the way Jack's gaze stopped on Mary, not the way a CEO looks at an employee, but something else, something that made Sierra's pride flare like gasoline meeting fire. The award ceremony began. Mary's name was announced. She walked onto the stage, hands shaking as she accepted the certificate and gift box. And this time, the presenter was Jack himself. Mary bowed politely. Thank you, sir. When their fingers touched, Jack flinched. That voice, that smile. He had to grip the gift box hard so he wouldn't drop it. Mary had no idea the man in front of her had once been the boy freezing under the awning. She only saw a polished CEO with eyes that seemed to hold words he hadn't found the courage to speak. Down below, Sierra stood rigid, nails digging into her palm. She watched the way Jack looked at Mary. And Sierra understood. Mary wasn't just a good employee. Mary was a threat. From that day, Sierra began to break Mary with things no one could see. First, the schedule. Mary's shifts changed constantly, morning to night, warehouse to returns desk, the dirtiest department, the easiest place to get blamed. Sierra always sounded like she was doing her a favor. You're capable. Capable people handle the hard jobs. Mary swallowed it. For Kevin. For the Christmas tree her son had asked for. Then Sierra began setting traps. A refund order with altered codes. An invoice mysteriously attached to Mary's account. A difficult customer sent directly to Mary during peak hours. Mary tried to explain. Sierra only shrugged. If you did it, you own it. The second trap was missing cash. The store kept emergency cash for situations. On a busy weekend, Sierra deliberately called Mary up to the warehouse, then had a close employee open the cash drawer and take a small amount. The next day, Sierra shouted in the meeting room, "We have a loss." Mary went pale when the cameras were cut at the moment the other person opened the drawer, leaving only footage of Mary standing nearby. Mary tried to speak, but Sierra shut it down with a cold voice. The company doesn't keep dishonest people. The third trap was delayed Christmas shipment. Branch 12 had an important holiday shipment. Sierra deliberately swapped labels so the shipment went to the wrong warehouse, then blamed Mary for entering the wrong code. If it arrived late, the company would lose a contract. When higher-ups called, Sierra cried instantly. "I warned Mary so many times, but she was careless." Mary listened, cold sweat on her hands. She understood then. Sierra wanted her gone. Not with truth, with rumor. The breaking point came when accounting called Mary in. A large amount of missing money. The receiving account was under Mary's name. Mary could barely breathe. "I never." Sierra sat at the far end of the table, eyes like ice. HR said, "We're very sorry. The company cannot keep someone like you." Mary stepped outside into light snowfall. She didn't understand why Sierra wanted her fired, only that now she had no job, no way to help Kevin live better. Mary didn't cry. She only felt hollow, like someone who had learned to carry blame. Back at the room, Kevin ran out and hugged her. "Mom, did you quit?" Mary held him tight, voice rough. "Today is Christmas. Mom wanted to come home early." But that night, after Kevin fell asleep, Mary sat alone in the kitchen staring at a paper covered in numbers. Rent, electricity, milk, school. She remembered Kevin's eyes when he asked about the Christmas tree, and her heart split open. At 8 that night, Jack put on the Santa suit again and brought gifts to Kevin. This time, he already knew Kevin was Mary's son. After the ceremony, Jack had quietly investigated. He needed to be sure that the woman from that snowy night was truly her. Jack watched Kevin's joy, and something warm returned to his chest after years of emptiness. But then he saw Mary inside. She sat still, face pale, eyes like they could no longer see the Christmas lights at all. Jack asked softly, "What happened?" Mary couldn't answer, and in that moment, Jack decided he had to know what was done to her. Jack went into the system records. He wasn't the kind of CEO who sat high and blindly trusted reports. Jack had lived at the bottom once, so he trusted traces more than words. The deeper he looked, the darker his face became. Emails redirected, files with edited timestamps, security cameras shut off at sensitive hours, access permissions held by only a few. This wasn't a mistake. This was a trap built on purpose. Jack leaned back, jaw clenched. He pictured Mary sitting numb in that small room, and Kevin's eyes hugging his Christmas gift. That night, Jack called his internal lawyer. "Tomorrow morning, I want every piece of evidence on my desk. Don't miss a single thing." The next morning, Mary received a call from the company. She was ordered to return to Branch 12. The voice was cold. No explanation. Mary stood still for a long moment before putting on her coat. She didn't hope for anything. She only thought maybe they just needed her to sign more termination papers. The third-floor meeting room was packed. Executives, HR, accounting, and Sierra. Jack stood at the head of the table. Mary walked in, heart pounding so hard it felt like it might break out of her chest. This was the first time she stood this close to Jack, not on a stage, not under lights, but inside a closed room where his eyes looked straight at her. "Sit," Jack said. His voice was low, without judgment. Jack turned on the screen. System logs appeared. Redirected emails, edited timestamps matching hours. Mary wasn't even present. All arrows led to one person. Sierra. Sierra forced a smile. "Maybe someone used my access." The lawyer cut in, firm. "That access belongs to you alone." The room fell silent. There was nowhere left to run. Mary was cleared. Her termination was canceled. Her reputation restored. Sierra was fired on the spot. Sierra stood, face drained. Before leaving, she turned to look at Mary. Her eyes were no longer jealous. They were hatred. That night, the mall sparkled with Christmas lights. People laughed, shopped, hugged, and sang carols. Sierra returned to the office to collect personal items. She deliberately passed the CEO's room. The door was slightly open, and Jack's voice drifted out through a phone call, sounding careless, as if he was only giving routine instructions. "Prepare gifts for Mary and Kevin, because she's the one who saved me on that Christmas night years ago." Sierra stopped dead. Only 1 second. Then her lips curled into a cold smile. "So," she whispered, "you didn't just steal my spotlight. You stole what the CEO has kept in his heart." Sierra couldn't return to the company through her career, so she would destroy Mary through her life. She had investigated Mary before. She knew Jones. She knew the debt. She knew the violence. She knew he was the kind of man who could become hell with one spark. Sierra sent Jones a set of photos. Jack beside Mary in the meeting room. Jack's hand on Mary's shoulder while comforting her. Angles chosen to be misunderstood. And a message. "Do you know what your wife did to climb that high?" Then Sierra threw the final poison. "And do you know Mary is the one who saved Jack years ago? A debt of kindness can turn into money." Jones slammed a bottle on the table. Jealousy and wounded pride ignited. He called Sierra. The conversation lasted nearly an hour. Sierra didn't need many words. She only needed to press the right wound. "You're her husband. You have the right. Just take back what belongs to you." Jones laughed through his teeth. This Christmas, someone would pay. Jones stopped coming home just to scream. He chose the one place Mary couldn't hide, the company. The next morning, Jones appeared in the parking lot, face red from alcohol, phone in hand set to record. As Jack walked out, Jones blocked him. A CEO getting cozy with an employee? Interesting. Jack looked at him, voice cold. "Who are you?" Jones grinned. "Mary's husband. She never told you?" Jack didn't answer, but his eyes changed. Jones lifted his phone like a knife. 100,000 today, or this clip goes online. I'll make her lose her job again, and you lose your image. Jack's jaw tightened. "I'll transfer the money, but stay away from Mary and her child. If you don't, even if I lose my image, you won't walk away." Jones shrugged. "Money hits my account, I disappear." Jack transferred it, and the moment he did, he messaged his people, "Follow Jones." From now on, Jones became a real threat. Jack didn't tell Mary. He knew if she found out, she would feel like she owed him again. For a few days after the transfer, Jones was strangely quiet. No calls, no visits, no screaming. Mary began to believe it was over. But Jones wasn't getting better. He was falling faster. Jones returned to the casino and lost everything. Again. This time, he didn't owe a bank. He owed criminals. A man named Rocco came to the room in the middle of the night. 48 hours, Rocco said, voice cold as metal. "No money. I take your life." Jones shook. In his mind, Jack appeared. Sierra's words echoed, "A debt of kindness can turn into money." To Jones, Mary was no longer his wife. Mary was an ATM. Jones showed up at the company and cornered Mary at the warehouse entrance. "Give me money," he snarled. "I'm about to die." Mary shook her head, panicking. "I don't have it." Jones ground his teeth. "Then go beg your CEO." Mary's face went white. "Don't say it like that." Jones raised his hand to slap her. But Jack appeared. He didn't shout, didn't threaten. He simply stood beside Mary, eyes cold, staring straight at Jones. "Leave," Jack said. Jones gave a thin smile. "You think you can save her for life?" He walked away, but his eyes had already made a decision. If he couldn't get money from Mary, he would take it from Kevin. That night, Kevin didn't come home. Mary waited at the door until late. She called the neighbor, the school, Jones. No one answered. Then her phone rang. Mary almost dropped it. Jones's voice was calm, too calm. "Your son is with me." Mary broke down. "Please, he's your son." Jones laughed. "Exactly. Because he's my son. I have the right. 500,000. No money. Then I'll sell the boy to pay my debt." Mary couldn't breathe. She ended the call, hands shaking. Jack's name appeared on her screen. But Mary didn't press call. She feared the feeling of owing someone. Owing someone made her feel small. Owing someone made her fear that one day Jack would leave, and she would collapse again. Mary whispered to herself, "I'm his mother. I have to bring him back myself." She grabbed her coat, shoved a little cash into her pocket, left a note just in case Kevin returned first, and stepped into the heavy snow. Alone. Mary didn't know that after the first blackmail attempt, Jack had put people on Jones. The report came in. Jones moved to an old apartment outside the city. There's a criminal car there. Jack didn't call Mary. He feared she would feel even more indebted. So Jack chose another way. He went to Jones. Jack appeared outside the old apartment. No police, only 2 bodyguards standing far enough away. Jones saw Jack and his eyes lit up like he'd found salvation. "Where's the money?" Jack stared him down. "Where's Kevin?" Jones curled his lip. "I release the kid when the money hits." Jack handed over money. Not 500,000, only enough for Jones to stall the debt and release Kevin that night. Jack understood. Too much money would only feed Jones's addiction deeper. Kevin was returned. The boy's eyes were red with fear. He clung to his mother the moment Mary arrived. Mary cried like something inside her finally shattered. The next morning, Mary heard neighbors whisper a really expensive black car was parked in front of Jones's place last night. Mary understood. She went to the company, stood outside Jack's office door, gripping her coat. Jack looked at her. "Is Kevin okay?" Mary nodded, eyes swollen. "Why? Do you help me this much?" Jack went quiet for a second, then gave a small smile, trying to soften it into a joke so she wouldn't feel heavy. "You're a good person. Good people tend to be helped by angels." Mary smiled, tears falling. She didn't understand why those words hurt so much. She walked out of Jack's office carrying a strange feeling, not relief, not pure gratitude. Something deeper, something heavier. Like an invisible thread had tied her fate to his long ago, and only now she could feel the weight of it. Jones didn't change. The money Jack gave only bought him a few days. Gambling still called him every night like a hungry addiction. And Rocco was out of patience. "You think I'm a church?" Rocco growled on the phone. "This time I'm not waiting for money. I'm taking something real." Jones hung up, hands trembling. And in his mind appeared Kevin. A child, a perfect hostage. Jones returned to the room in a storm of madness. He grabbed Mary as she came home from work. "Go get money! Now!" he screamed. Mary stepped back, voice shaking but firm. "I won't beg. I won't sell myself." Jones slapped her. The sound cracked in the tiny room. Kevin screamed. Mary held her cheek, then pulled her son close, and for the first time her eyes didn't hold fear when she looked at Jones, only pain and distance. Jones panted, then laughed crookedly. "You think I'm afraid of Jack? I've got something to force him." Mary's blood turned cold. Jones leaned in, whispering like poison. "Do you even know who you saved that night years ago? It was Jack, the CEO. You saved him, so he owes you. Go collect your debt." Mary went still. The room tilted. So the man she saved in the snow that night was Jack. And so Jack, standing near her all this time, had never been a coincidence. Jones threw the phone into her hands. "Call him. 500,000, or you'll never see Kevin again." Mary stiffened. Jack's name glowed on the screen. In her mind, Jack kneeling to give Kevin a gift, Jack saying, "Good people get helped by angels," Jack looking at her like she wasn't a burden. Mary let the phone drop. "I won't call." Jones's eyes widened. He turned away, texting as he walked. A bigger trap was already being built. Kevin disappeared again, fast, cold, no trace. Only one message. "If you want to see your son, come to the old warehouse outside the city, alone." Mary grabbed her coat and stepped into the snow without looking back. She didn't call Jack, because she believed she'd already troubled him enough. But Jack noticed. Mary didn't show up to work. Her phone didn't answer. Jack called the people following Jones. "There's movement," they said. Jones got into a strange car, heading to the outskirts. Jack's chest tightened. He remembered that snowy night when he lay there and no one stopped. Mary stopped. Jack would not let Mary become the one lying there today. Jack called Officer Howard, someone he had supported through charity, and activated location tracking from the threatening number. Jack didn't go alone. The old warehouse emerged through heavy snow. Wind hissed through broken gaps like a moan. Mary was dragged inside and tied. Kevin was shoved into a corner, mouth taped shut, eyes wide with terror. Jones stood there, hollow-cheeked, eyes burning like a man who had crossed the line. Mary looked at her son, heart crushed. "Jones," she rasped, "that's your child." Jones smiled like something cracked inside him. "When I've got no way out, I take everyone down with me." Mary stared at him, no fear left. "Kindness didn't destroy you," she said slowly. "You destroyed yourself." Sirens wailed in the distance. Jones panicked and yanked Mary in front of him like a shield. The warehouse door burst open. Headlights swept across the floor, snow blowing in white. Jack stood there, shoulders covered in snow. "Let her go," he said, voice low and solid. "You're just a man who owes a debt." Jones screamed. Jack took one step forward. "Yes," Jack said. "I owe a debt, and I came to pay it." Rocco pulled a gun, but the police surged in from multiple angles, exactly as planned. Rocco was tackled. Jones was slammed down onto the concrete and cuffed. Kevin's tape was ripped away. The boy ran to his mother. Mary dropped to her knees, wrapping him up, sobbing, her whole body shaking. Jack stood behind them, watching like he was staring at a miracle he almost lost. This time, he wasn't too late. Jack walked closer, carefully, afraid a sudden movement might shatter the fragile moment. "It's okay," Jack whispered, uncertain whether he was speaking to Kevin or to himself. "It's over. You're safe." Mary lifted her face. Her eyes were raw with tears, and deep inside them was the terror of having stepped past the edge of life. She didn't say thank you. Some moments make gratitude feel too small. The next morning, Sierra was arrested, not because of suspicion, because of evidence. System logs showed the abuse of access. Internal emails were redirected, camera files were altered, and messages between Sierra and Jones, clear enough that no one could deny anything. As Sierra was escorted out of the building, she still tried to keep her back straight. But when she saw Mary outside, holding Kevin's hand, Sierra paused. Maybe for the first time in her life, she understood. What made her lose? Wasn't power, wasn't money. It was that tiny light she had never possessed. Jones was sentenced for abuse, kidnapping, extortion, and colluding with criminals. When he was taken to the prison transport, Jones turned back to look at Mary one last time. There was no rage left, no hatred, only emptiness of a man who had destroyed everything with his own hands. Mary didn't look away. She looked straight back, not to win, to close the door. Sometimes the heaviest punishment isn't prison. It's realizing no one wants to hold your hand anymore. That night, Mary and Kevin stayed in the medical room. Kevin slept from exhaustion. His small hand still gripped his mother's, as if letting go for even a second would bring the nightmare back. Mary sat by the bed, watching him without blinking. Tears fell without her noticing. Jack stood in the doorway for a long time, hesitant like someone unsure he had the right to step inside. Mary saw him. "I thought I lost him," she said, voice breaking. Jack took one slow step closer, careful. "I'm sorry," he said, "for letting the darkness reach you." Mary shook her head. "It's not your fault." A long silence. Then Jack spoke, so low it sounded almost like confession. "That night, the one who saved me was you, wasn't it?" Mary froze. The gray scarf around her neck suddenly felt heavy with memory. She nodded, barely. Jack inhaled, as if he'd finally placed the last missing piece into his life. "Don't think you owe me," he said. "I'm the one who owes you. But I don't want to repay it with money. I want to repay it by staying." Mary looked at him for a long time. Then she spoke slowly, clearly, like she was setting a condition for her own heart. "Don't save me with money anymore. Stay with kindness." Jack nodded. No dramatic vows. Just the nod of a man who had chosen to truly stay. A few weeks later, Christmas arrived. Snow fell softly, no longer heavy enough to bury anyone. The city was still bright, but this time the lights didn't hurt Mary. Their new rented home wasn't luxurious, but it was warm. The old fireplace crackled. A string of golden Christmas lights hung in the window. Kevin hung a red stocking by the fireplace and asked, "Mom, does Santa remember us?" Mary smiled. "Wait and see." The door opened. Jack walked in carrying a small Christmas tree. Snow still dusted his shoulders. Kevin cheered. "Uncle Jack!" Jack set the tree down, then knelt in front of Kevin, serious like a vow. "I'm not Santa, but I promise I'll always be here, okay?" Kevin nodded hard. Jack stood and turned to Mary. "That night," he said, "if it weren't for you, there wouldn't be the man I am today." Mary placed her hand on his chest, where his heart beat steady like a home. "Then," she whispered, "let's say this Christmas pays it back." Outside, snow fell. The tree lit up. A new family, imperfect but real, was born in the heart of Christmas. And this time, the miracle stayed. Not in the flashy streetlights, not in perfectly wrapped boxes under a tree. The miracle stayed in a small home with a crackling fireplace, in the steady breathing of a child who finally slept without fear, and in the eyes of two people who had survived too many winters to not understand this truth. Being together is the gift. Jack stood nearby, saying nothing, simply staying, exactly as he promised. No grand speeches, no dramatic vows, just not leaving. If you've made it to this moment, thank you for staying with this story. Because sometimes all it takes is one person who stops in the snow, and an entire life can change direction. Christmas isn't in gifts or lights. It's in human compassion. If this story touched you, please hit like to help share that message with more people. And subscribe to The Ambiguous Heart if you love healing stories, slow miracles, and warm endings in a world full of cold. Leave a comment and tell us, if it were you, Would you have stopped in that snowy night? Wishing you a peaceful Christmas and hoping that you will always be the one who stops.